Hello, beautiful seekers, and welcome to Moon Magic and the power of the Aries New Moon for March 2020. I am going to take some extra time and care with this moon magic. The information coming in here for me for this time and for this energetic transition point is really powerful. And there's a lot happening at the same time in March. If you've watched your monthly readings for your signs for March, you will know that around this time, there's a lot happening. It's very impactful. The second half of March has a feeling like we are learning to be in a new modality. We are kind of like little kids, falling down, learning to walk, falling down again, being over, processing a huge amount of information, new paradigms, and it can feel really overwhelming. And this new moon hits on some of our old patterns, our old fears, and it asks a lot of questions. It brings up a lot of questions about how we have done things before now. And so let's talk through everything that's going on here with this new moon, because there's a lot. We're going to talk about all the different transits that are moving through here, why this new moon is so impactful. And then we're going to get down to the core message, because I think it's a message. I've seen it getting put out there a little bit by those that I respect and love, but I think we need affirmations of it more and more and more right now. We really need there to be this soothing understanding of what is going on. So I'm a big fan of the Aries New Moon in general. It's the first new moon of the Western astrological new year. Like, we have burst into spring in the Northern Hemisphere. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere as well, you're bursting into that transformative time of year where things are starting to change their shape. So no matter which side of the world you're on, the Aries New Moon has this kind of fresh perspective to it, right? It's the baby of the zodiac, and there is just kind of this innocent hope and rejuvenation to it. The sun and the moon are hanging out 4 degrees of Aries, right? So generally speaking, this time of year for me feels very impactful, really powerful. But what's also interesting, I was just reading up on this a little bit, and they still don't have all the information, and you guys can add to this conversation if you want, but a lot of people who struggle with depression, anxiety, heaviness in the winter, that can actually get worse during this time. There can be a lot of anxiety that gets brought to the surface as spring starts to come in, as the sun starts to return, as there's all this warmth and vibrancy, and we're supposed to feel excited. We're supposed to feel vibrant. We're supposed to feel free and wild and why am I feeling so much fear, so much anxiety? And I think this new moon kind of reflects some of that. So while on the one hand, I think this is a beautiful time. There's a new energetic approach coming in for everybody right now. And there is a new way of moving through the world that many of us are not comfortable or familiar with quite yet. But this year, this moon is crucial. It's happening on March 24th. The sun and the moon are at 4 degrees of Aries, so really early on in Aries season. It's happening just a few days after Saturn has shifted, which is huge. And I will be doing some check-in with Saturn moving into Aquarius over on my Patreon. If you need support, you need calm, you need questions and grounding practices, and just a place to hang out with me and talk and share your experiences with others in a more intimate setting, go check me out on Patreon. That is a really wonderful group of people, and it's much more intimate and much more one-on-one. But Saturn moving into Aquarius is a big one. And that's just happening a few days before, and it's still going to be at 0 degrees of Aquarius. It's also just a few days after the spring equinox in the northern, fall equinox in the southern hemisphere. So that tipping point in the year, and equinoxes are really powerful. I think in some ways they're more powerful than the solstices because they ask us to look at something kind of in the evenness of that light. There's a honesty that emerges. So all of that's happening, right? This new moon is coming off of some really big energetic shifts. And not only that, but this is all happening while we are still doing some of the hard work with our shadow selves. So I know we were talking about that a lot in 2019 in general, and then also in December and January. There was so much energy working through Capricorn and hitting heavy, and we still have that going on because not only are the sun and moon conjunct in Aries, they're conjunct with Chiron in Aries. Chiron's at 5 degrees of Aries at this point. And so these three are conversing about what we think are our weaknesses, where we have been wounded, where we have been cast down, and reworking those to be about where we have strength, where we have the ability to give back, where we have the ability to step up. And that's a big new moon lesson, right? Especially in Aries. Because Aries is the sign of the warrior, the Martian energy, right? The action in the world, taking action in the world, initiating in the world, setting something, getting that spark lit, getting that fire moved. It's not about sitting still. It's not an energy that's about receptivity. It's an energy about moving forward. However, one of the big things we are learning over the next several years, and it's one of the big themes with Chiron coming in here, is to understand our action through the world in a different way. Now I'm going to loop back to that, but let me finish talking about what else is going on during this time because it's pretty intense. We also have 3 planets still in Capricorn doing really important work in a conjunction. We have Mars at 23 degrees of Capricorn, Pluto at 24 degrees of Capricorn, and Jupiter at 25 degrees of Capricorn. So these 3 are having a little conference. They're hanging out here in Capricorn, still doing the hard work of looking at our foundations and our shadow sides and how we move through the world and what that means. And the thing that's interesting about these 3 working together is they all have very different approaches to that. Mars wants to take action, wants to get in there and move mountains, blast through anything that's in its path, and be focused. Jupiter wants to be in the mindset of it, energetically believe that things are going to work out, be a little bit more in flow, be a little bit more receptive, a little bit more open to the flow and the nature of life. And Pluto is going to have us look at where we want control, where we want power, where we obsess over things. So these 3 are all having us look at that at the same time that Sun, Moon, and Chiron are in their conjunction over in Aries, another cardinal sign, saying, okay, we're in this new beginning. What next? So a ton of energy in cardinal signs here, right? And in the beginning of a new energetic cycle, when it comes to Saturn, though Saturn, we will be getting into that in another video, is only visiting Aquarius for a little bit before it retrogrades back to Capricorn in just a few months. So all this energy in cardinal signs, right? And a lot of it has to do with masculine energy. A lot of it has to do with energy that is about how we move through the world, how we get what we want. And it's all getting challenged. And it can be uncomfortable. It can be tender. It can be scary. And there could feel like there's a lot of pressure in your head during this new moon. And the thing that came to me when I saw all of this energy together was just sit with it. There's a lot of fear-mongering going on in the media, but not just in the media. It's also going on in the spiritual community. Honestly, there's not everybody, but I think in the astrological world, there's a lot of fear-mongering about Saturn. and the fact that things are going to get a lot worse and it's going to be a hurricane and it's going to be awful. There's a lot of fear mongering about all the work that we're doing with these conjunctions and with Chiron and with the work we've been doing in Capricorn. There's a lot that says you don't actually have the agency to tap into your divine gifts, into your divine lovability, and be at peace and in love with your life. There's a lot about the work that I see done in this field that is about stripping you of that basic tenet. And I challenge that here with this Aries new moon. I think we have energetic waves and frequencies, and we're going through that right now. You know, collectively, there's a ton of anxiety moving through the world. We can all feel it. We can all feel it. You know, we're bouncing off of each other. We're sharing in this vibrational collective conversation, and we're feeling it, right? We're feeling the discomfort of moving into something bigger. We're feeling the discomfort of having to ask new questions and come up with new solutions and come up with new ways of moving through the world. But I think the temptation with a lot of this cardinal sign energy that is very much about the shadow side and where we are afraid and where we want to restrict or hold ourselves back, the initial response might be to say why things won't work, why they're going to go badly, being the pessimist or the realist that says that, well, you might as well just plan for the worst and give up now. And Jupiter's actually challenging that here with Mars and Pluto and saying, okay, there's another way. And one of the things I want you to sit with here during the Aries New Moon is where you immediately jump to, there's no way I can fix that. Look at those. Look at that. And see where you feel you're disempowering yourself rather than saying, there's always a way. There's always a way to connect. There's always a way to ask new questions. There's always a way to question my own thoughts, as Byron Katie would ask you to do. There's always a way to reconsider my emotive stance on something. Because if there's one thing also that Aries reminds us of is that we are empowered individuals, that we are empowered to act and move in the way that is authentic to us, and that it's not up to somebody else to choose our anxiety for us or our fear for us or our hope for us. And there's a deeper lesson here as well. We are looking, and this is a big cultural moment that's been going on for several years here, but we are looking at what action in the world really means. You know, there's a lot of conversation about manifestation and getting the things to happen in the world, and there's a lot of conversation about, you know, empowering yourself and bossing up and moving through the world and making it happen. And I'm not saying that those are wrong for existing. It's fun to play in the modality of determination and grit and will, but we need to be asking ourselves why we feel we need to be taking action all the time, why we feel we need to be pushing forward, why we feel we need to get hits of adrenaline all the time in order to affirm our existence. I'm not saying those things are wrong. Once again, I'm saying that they have a role to play, but that's just one role. That's just one modality. It is not the defining character of our entire lives. And each of us has our own way of connecting with that. For me personally, I am somebody who, as I lean more and more into my practices and into my work and into who I am in the world, I'm not somebody who is very Martian at all. I move through the world very softly. And that's how I feel the most alive. I don't want a whole bunch of loud, crazy things happening around me all the time. I'm not trying to move through the world, and that's okay. Now, it's not everybody. Once again, I'm not trying to put my energy stamp onto you. But this new moon is going to ask you, do you move through the world via fear? You know, do you do things because of shame, because of fear, because of guilt, because you feel that that is the way that you will be accepted or understood as successful in the world? Do you take action because that is the blueprint that you were given? and you're just doing it even though you feel dead inside about it. Sit with it. Sit with why it's scary to maybe have to sit still and not move around the world all the time, or not have every single luxury item. Sit with where you feel any discomfort and look at it, because this moon is going to, like I said, bring up more questions than answers. It's going to question everything. It's going to question why you feel you need to do things in a certain way. And it's sensitive, I'll be honest, not every new moon is different, has its own signature stamp on it. This one is more tender. It gets a little bit more into some raw aspects of our fear being and our inner child, our inner dictators. Those systems that kind of come in and make decisions via a past experience, right? And what is the antidote to that? What is the antidote to that? It is to sit with it and not be afraid of it. It is to sit with the anxiety and not be afraid of it. It is to sit with the parts of ourselves that want to be defeatist and not be afraid of it. It's to sit with, there's this huge organic cosmic world we're living in where planets are moving and we're moving and there's a conversation going on there, and all of that's happening, but why are we afraid of that? Why are we afraid of a shift in energy? Do we need to be afraid of that shift in energy? Is it going to strip us immediately of our ability to connect to the divine? Because I have to say that this tool system is amazing and I love it. However, whenever we start to frame it as a punitive, overarching system that is here to grind us down and to teach us a lesson and to make things hard, that is leftovers from outdated religious movements from other centuries. And I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. I'm not here for this, and I don't want to move through the world that way. I think it's an outdated interpretation. We are in the age of Aquarius. We are at the beginning of Saturn in Aquarius. And the old way of interpreting these energies is to fear them, to say, oh, it's going to be really bad. Oh, a lot of bad things are going to happen before we can understand ourselves. But Saturn in Aquarius is laughing at that, because that's the old way. And he's like, oh, you're missing the point here. So I don't mean to rant too much about that, but I'm really not into this idea that, you pull up a report about you and it says, well, this is just going to be a bad 2 years for you to commit to anything or to believe in anything because you don't know who you are. Or this is going to be a really foggy, terrible time and your body's going to feel awful and you're just going to be struggling, right? There's so much out there that strips us of our inherent divine energy, our inherent ability to connect, to heal, to love, to create calm and peace in this world. And that's part of the problem. And it really upsets me, actually. I will almost cry when I think about it, because these tools are here to help us, not to punish us. So let's pull some cards. Queen of Pentacles, love it. I'm just going to pull 3 today. 3 feels like the right number. But don't be afraid of this moon or Saturn in Aquarius or the stuff that's going on in the world. It's okay if you are fearful, but it's okay to sit with that fear, right? Ace of Swords. It's okay to sit with that fear. It's okay to sit with that anxiety. It's okay to sit with where maybe you feel insecure, scared, like the foundation isn't under you right now and you don't know how to move. You don't know how to be in this new world. That's okay. That's okay. Just know it doesn't strip you. It doesn't strip any of us of our value. 7 of Pentacles. I will say with this new moon, there is an assessment. This is an assessment time. This is a time to ask questions. This is a time to really look at patterning. It's a time to look at where we disenfranchise ourselves, where we put ourselves down, or where we use tools in outmoded ways. Queen of Pentacles is always a reminder of peace and calm, right? She's the self-value queen that takes her time moving through the world. And like I said, you know, Aries energy is very much about moving through the world, about initiating, setting that spark into the wood and lighting it on fire and moving and taking action. So the Queen of Pentacles is really interesting here because she's saying, but what does that action mean? Why do you feel you need to take that action? Why do you feel you need to have that manifestation? What is going on here? And the thing is, the more you let yourself question, the more clarity comes in. In fact, you know, I feel like the Queen of Pentacles and Seven of Pentacles, it's very Virgo energy, even though there's not much Virgo going on right now at all, actually, in our energetic map at the moment. It's not a Virgo-based time, but these two are looking at the details. They're asking the questions. They're going deep. They're taking a moment to really look rather than acting, rather than just moving on things quickly, rather than brushing over something that seems insignificant. This is a time to look at every place where you feel scared or discomfort. But there's clarity in the middle of that. The Ace of Swords is clarity, right? It cuts through the cobwebs in our mind. It cuts through the fogginess that can sometimes come up in us. It cuts through who we thought we had to be. It sometimes cuts away old anchor points that are not serving us. They're just holding us down under the water. And there is a difference between positive anchoring and who we know we are and being tethered under the water by something scary. Yeah, this moon is really big, and I just want to affirm again and again that you are going to feel tender probably. You probably are, because you're human, and you're here to feel, and you're here to witness yourself and interact with yourself and with others, and to explore and experiment with that. So also not that weird, not that scary, not that stressful to be moving into a moon in an energetic cycle that is about assessment and about feeling. Great. Let's do that. I'm going to be doing a new moon activation over on Patreon as well, where we are going to sit with this energy a lot closer to the day and really feel what's coming up, because as we know, each day brings its own nugget of wisdom. We're also going to be doing some work with the equinox and with the shift of Saturn. All of that's going to be happening. So I would love to see you over there joining me. You can find me on my Instagram at Sarah Verba. You can also find me on my website. I do one-on-one readings, and I have some openings for April. So if you want to work with me, you can hop on over there and check out my April calendar. I will leave the link for that in the description box. And I will leave the Patreon link, and I will leave my Instagram handle. Also, of course, I'm wearing PinkLune's gorgeous jewelry. So if you're looking for some grounding, some love, some Taurus love, I would highly recommend you go check out her Etsy shop. It is beautiful. I will leave her link below as well. And I will see you all so soon for the April readings and for a lot more magic and a lot more love ahead. There's so much more ahead for all of us. Sending you so much love and gratitude.